All right, welcome to another episode of Not Investment Advice. We've got the NIA boys here today. Jack Butcher, founder of Visualize Value, and Trung Phan, meme master flex himself, writer for Bloomberg, and I'm Bilal Zaidi. You a few Red Bulls in, showing it already.
I only got the one. I did the Starbucks pouches this morning, but can never have enough of the. Dude, I'm gonna tell you a story. I was up in a friend's house.
Pouch?
Yeah,
do you know your milligram
like
count for caffeine on a daily basis, roughly?
I don't know, man. I call it probably the equivalent of 3 Red Bulls. So I don't know what that is. That's a lot, the last thing I'll say is I was visiting some friends in Whistler a couple days ago, just a couple days. And everybody has kids and in their mid-30s. And I break out the 4-pack of Red Bull and they're like,
"You're the hero?"
Like, bro, I haven't had a Red Bull in 20 years is what the host of the house is saying. Is like, what are you doing? I'm like, listen, man. Jack knows that kid life, man. Anything to survive the day, right?
It's different.
Well, this is writing fuel, though, isn't it? As much as it is for you. Like, you don't write without drinking Red Bull, correct, Trung?
My best writing comes shortly after drinking Red Bull.
There you go. Cut the check, right? That'd be a great sponsorship.
Oh, yeah.
That's true. That's true. All right, let's let people know what we're talking about. We're going to have to address the elephant in the room, which is a meme of the week, which you definitely have to make sure you hang around for that in a second. But today we're going to talk about artificial intelligence applied to Hollywood. Our boy Trung, obviously, a lot of people know he's written a comedy script in the past. And we're going to be talking about how AI could be applied to that process, and more broadly, how AI could be applied to creative endeavors. Then we're going to talk about football, my favorite thing here. So Jack's been watching the Wrexham Ryan Reynolds show. Like, I forgot what it's called, but we're going to be talking about that idea of basically famous people or people with attention buying assets like a football club and kind of extrapolate that. And if we'll get to it, we'll talk about a European energy crisis because there's a lot going on there as well.
We'll definitely get to that because I want to ask, I don't know a lot about the UK energy situation, but I'd love to know your guys.
Neither do we. So yeah. The two Brits on the call are going to rely on history professor Trung to
we'll do that. We'll do
but
that.
Let's get straight to meme of the week, boys. We skipped it for a few weeks, and this is the only one we could start with. Jack, you got this one for this week, yeah? Here we go. Here we go. Jesus Christ. All right, do you want to read out what it says, one of you guys?
Okay, Jack's on mute, so I'm gonna hit it.
You're on mute. Go on.
It's a photo of Vitalik with a young lady. It looks like in Asia somewhere. And I'm not going to bury the lead here. He's packing some heat in his pants.
I don't know if it's in Asia, Mike.
The caption on this tweet says, "My entire net worth is in this man's pants." I don't like. Listen, this is a PG show. We try to keep NIA PG, but this is just so funny. And people, for the listeners, just Google or Twitter search Vitalik, and it's going to be everywhere. That photo. Just a myth.
There's so many
myth
memes.
Literally grows every single day. Literally.
Yeah, literally grows.
Unintended.
The chart off the back of that image being posted. So it's funny, like people are literally getting liquidated, shorts getting liquidated from that picture.
It's so ridiculous.
Man,
Did you see someone made a cryptocurrency as well? Someone made one like Vitalik something, and it's been pumping, obviously, because what else would it be? That is the definition of a meme long.
Dude, I mean, we're way more serious and high class than that just to make these dumb puns, right?
No, not even. I'm not above it now.
I'm not going to go long Ethereum after seeing that. Why would I go long Ethereum?
God's sake. Either way, I mean, that is going to stick around for a while. That's like a classic meme by this point already.
There's so many forever, probably. Unfortunately, or fortunately. I mean, fortunately in this case.
Yeah.
I don't think any man's ever been hurt by a positive.
Yeah, I don't think he's upset about that.
Yeah. But all right, boys, let's get on to the serious stuff. Let's talk about AI and Hollywood, or AI and creativity. Trung, look, you wrote about this in Bloomberg. You're a lowercase J journalist. We all know that. But, it's a really good piece. I read through it this morning in prep for this. But why don't you just let people know, the people that don't actually know that you wrote a script in the past, because I know a lot of people listening would know that, but there's some newer people around today too. So what's the background on that? What was that?
Okay, so 10 years ago, I was living in Ho Chi Minh City, doing nothing with my life. But part of that doing nothing was I wrote a comedy film script called The Lose. So that's The Loser without the letter R. And the pitch for the movie was that it was a fugitive meets Harold and Kumar set in Southeast Asia. We actually set the movie in Laos because I actually want to go back to Vietnam one day. And if this movie had been made and it was set in Vietnam, I would never be allowed in Vietnam again.
Jesus.
We were pretty hard on the locals, not the locals, but like the local politicians.
Yeah. So you sold it to Fox or something, right?
Yeah, sold it to Fox. Not going to bury the lead there either. Never got made.
Yeah, never got made. But now you're a new Trung fan, so maybe there'll be. You've talked about it becoming maybe a TV show. You guys were doing a pilot or something like that. So either way, you're still running with that, which is awesome. But you wrote about this in Bloomberg. So talk about like what the idea was for this piece, because I read it and it was really interesting. It was centered around Corto AI, I think is the name of the company.
Yeah.
But what do they do and how do they use AI to help people like you write and stuff like this?
Right. So the CEO of Corto, I'm probably going to butcher the name, Yves Berquist, he reached out to me when he heard I'd done a script. He'd probably seen my dumb memes on the Twitter. He's like, okay, maybe I'll reach out to this guy and see if he can help me tell the story a bit. But Corto AI comes out of the technology center at USC. So USC, actually, you know, Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine, they built like a whole, you guys know that like music school at USC, right? USC is famous for film. And a bit of the technology they took out of that was they're trying to study the DNA of a script. So Bilal, did any of that part of the DNA script ingestion make sense to you?
Yeah, completely. Do you know what it made me think of? I mean, this is many years ago, but nowhere near as advanced. But when you were at school, when you would put an essay in and they would put it through that I forgot what it was called. Do you remember this, Jack, in the UK? What it was called?
If it's basically like plagiarized, right?
Plagiarism checker, yeah. Which, if you think about it, that was early. I mean, they must be doing some sort of AI, right, I'm assuming, even if it was basic. But like now that stuff must be so advanced now, like you're not getting away with it. The copy and paste, change a few words doesn't work now. But yeah, so I read you had 4 steps. I'm just going to share them out loud so you can explain some of them if relevant. Ingest and analyze, generate lists of comps, social media analysis, extract audience segments. So... Okay. Some of them sound straightforward, but so ingest and analyze, I'm assuming that is just bringing in the script into their
Exactly. So to your point, like there's already technology, like Grammarly, right, can tell you what like level reading you're at. Probably very similar in nature because like text analysis is so advanced already. And, you know, like sentiment analysis is super advanced. You can already tell like what the emotion of a script is, right? Like they just take like certain words have negative connotations. Like if a script has "I'm going to kill you," that's probably a pretty serious like script, right? So the study of language analysis is pretty set. So the part of ingesting, analyzing, nothing specific to just Corto AI, right? But the other parts that you mentioned is kind of where they claim the secret sauce is, and what they're saying essentially is like they're going to combine. Okay, we'll figure out what type of script you have, comedy, drama, adventure, and what other film it's like, because they have a database of 700,000 films and they can match it against that. But then now we're going to be using that against our social media analysis to see how you can connect your project and try to make it go super viral, right? And as an example,
we talked about that with the film, the Minions one, right?
Yeah, exactly. So something that Corto has done, they call it these viral pathways. They've identified a certain social media communities. And I mean, I'll give you a very intuitive example. Like Marvel can make a Marvel movie go viral. Like the Marvel community, they'll just meme it into oblivion, right? But basically, there are a lot of these type of communities where if you can make content that engages them, it could potentially blow up. So not to say that you've create an entire script around that, but if you can give them like if you give somebody just a little bit, like some of these Netflix memes, like the Tiger King, if you just hit, like Tiger King has blown up for FinTwit, right? Like that one line is like, I will never financially recover from this. It's like, if you can give like these communities like a nugget, it can help blow it up. So they're basically combining the DNA analysis of a script with the social media pathways. That was kind of the pitch. Did that come off right, Bilal?
Yeah, that makes sense. And then so you basically take your script, or they take your script, put it into their analysis, and then what does it spit out for you? Is it like is it like a report or is it like just insights?
It's like I got like a 25-page PDF. He's like, here are the comps. He's like, these are the movies that it's like. One movie was The Hangover 2, which was a comedy in Bangkok. I'm like, perfect. Yeah. They tell you the kind of the tenor and theme or the personality of your script, but the two scores they have is one is called uniqueness. So what they'll look at the character sets and the type of character arcs they go through, and to see if it's similar to any other movie. And mine was too similar. That was a problem.
Was that character supposed to be you? Does this hit? That would be really tough to take. Like, oh, this is a true story based on my life, and you're saying I'm less like everyone else.
It's like, yo, you're just like everyone else, right? It's like everybody's got this story, man. Good, nice try. But so the two scores are uniqueness and interestingness, and basically I didn't score well on those. And did you see who the silver bullet was, Bilal?
Yeah, I did, but you go for it. It said if there was a conclusion, if you had a star, they could make the formulaic film successful. Who was the star?
Chris Pratt. What do you guys think?
There we go. Plain Trung Phan.
Yeah, Plain Trung. So, well, you guys will laugh. The main character is actually a white guy. So.
Oh, that's yeah.
Even I had to do that. Listen, I'm not foolish. This is 2012. Like, I know what sells, man.
Fair enough. All right. So I guess that's kind of how it works. We don't have to go in every single detail. You talked about extracting audience segments a little bit as well, but so like the question I guess is like, how useful was it as someone who is a creative? And Jack, I'll be curious to get your take on this too, because you obviously are a creative person and you do creative work. Like the kind of two questions I have are like, how useful was it, and how much can AI like replace this creativity part?
Well, so I wrote in the article, I asked Kim Benabib, who's a creator of an HBO show called The Brink. I mean, if you ask a creative in the industry, what's their incentive going to be? They're going to obviously say, like, this is not for me, right? I think this is actually a good point to ask Jack about his thoughts about arts and AI before I get into like. Yeah, actually, that's good
because Jack's got Jack. You're creative, but you're also a realist on the technology front as well.
Mm. Well, I think film is interesting because I'm surprised that it downgrades you for it not being similar, because we talked about it on some of the older podcasts where it's like there's a hero's journey and there's like this cadence, this up and down, and maybe you like transpose different events and different characters into those situations, but they're all kind of follow a cadence of some sort. They're just different, you swap out certain elements. So that would be my first reaction to it, is like, I don't know whether that's actually a bad thing. Like unique films that are like, you win a Sundance award or something, and then like it goes into cinema for uniqueness, and artistic expression is almost at the other end of the spectrum in many cases from commercial success. So it'd be interesting to know, like,
it's a good point.
With what intent was the algorithm or the parameters that they're checking for, but what's the intent that it's analyzing for? Is it like maximum reach, or is it like most creative and unique? Because they're obviously very different.
That's a good question. Trung, do you know, is it based on that box office hits?
Well, like I said, it's like they're not making
essentially what it's optimizing for.
Right, is like they're basically saying the marketability of the film, and that's where the social element comes in, right? I think Jack, you're completely right, and we've talked about it before. Is like with memes, you want like 90% familiarity and then like maybe 10% difference, right? Like you want to implant it in your brain. So I don't maybe I misread it. Maybe my script just sucked. Like
it's 10 years ago, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I don't know. Like, I don't know what relationship you have with this person either, Trung, but it's like also, man, somebody has to write the software, right? It's not like, I think that's one of the things with AI that people get tripped up on. It's like they assume that it's like, this thing has like a completely objective opinion on my work. It's like, no, a bunch of people who have certain views or are ranking certain criteria are influencing the way it produces a result. So I think that's another thing where, man, working in marketing, Bilal, you'll know this too. It's like people are desperate for a tool that's just like, let me just chuck something at this, and then it just tells me exactly what to do. And the other thing that does is like, that basically creates a target for everybody to follow. So it's like, if you're using the same tool, are you pushing your script in the same direction as everyone else? And then does that like eventually kind of leave you at the same starting point. So I don't know, a lot of it's, I think there's one thing that I think is really useful is that reading level thing. You know, if you're writing a piece and it's like, this is, you know,
too complicated,
fifth grade
right?
reading
like,
level, or I don't even know what the grade system is in America, but you get what I'm saying. Like a kid could read this. That is a very useful piece of information for somebody that's trying to produce something that is widely consumable.
Yeah.
But all of the more like nuanced, human things that I think are difficult. Like the thing that I'm very skeptical of is like, can pre-predict virality. That to me is like a crazy promise, because I think those things almost always feel like you can have the intent of, we talked about the Minions thing where you get a certain amount of people involved that are talented in that regard, but to like outsource that to something to say make a viral thing, I don't know how predictable or possible that is. So I would be skeptical about that. But the analysis of like who could understand this, what like the vocabulary in this thing is at X, makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think the example, and I think Trung's video just went for a second, so I'll keep talking while it comes back. But he's back. So yeah, one of the things.
I missed that. Yeah, I heard Jack talk about the unpredictability of everything. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. I was just going to pull out the quote from your writer from Kim, the co-creator of The Brink, the one you mentioned before.
Yep.
And I kind of agree with what she said. She said, what makes a hit intangible?
Come on, him, brother.
Oh, sorry, it's a he.
Yeah.
It's Kim and him. All right, sorry, my bad. What makes a hit is intangible. It's a combination of voice, serendipity, and magic that cannot be broken down into math. And I mean, again, all of this stuff, there's lots of nuance, but like, I completely agree with what like Jack said there. Like the tools to analyze, definitely, I'm sure can like get better and better and better. But when it comes to like actually creating something, like there can be tools probably that assist, but we're nowhere near at it, like actually competing with the best writers in the world at the moment, in my opinion. And like even a simpler example, a lot of people are using this in advertising, like Jack just said. So, you know, I don't know how many words a script is, but let's say tens of thousands of words or whatever, hundreds of thousands maybe even. But like, yeah, if a 2-hour film, compare that to a 3-second ad read on Facebook ads, right? So there are people using like, was it GPT-3 or whatever, and like a lot of the OpenAI stuff. And that one, I can see that actually maybe working a little bit better because it's shorter, it's text-based. I'm saying the text. The images, I think, is interesting. We can get onto that in a second. But text to me seems the most tangible use case at the moment.
Copywriting makes a lot of sense, right? It's
exactly.
Like tight. And it's like copywriting is very mechanical.
And you are using a bit more of a formula. There is still that creative spark that maybe those genius people can put their input into that, and it kind of extrapolates it and creates 100 versions, and they pick the best one or something like that. But yeah, I think that could work. But like when it comes to actually creating, let's say, a feature film, like that, I think we're way far from. But at the same time, who knows in the future what it would get like. What about you, Trung? You're going to pull out a few examples.
I just want to add. I just want to say to Cordo's credit, like they're not saying they can predict the virality. Yeah. They're just saying like these are your best odds. But again, that in a way is a prediction. I mean, selfishly as a creator, as a writer, I am also in the camp of like I'm not going to get replaced by AI for writing. I feel like there is something magical. William Goldman, super famous screenwriter, wrote Sundance, Butch Cassidy Sundance Kid. He said, nobody knows anything about Hollywood. Not a single person knows for certain what's going to work. It's a guess every time. And I still agree with that, right? We see some of the stuff that turns into hits and don't. You have no idea. Although the two examples I brought up here, Bilal, you got to give credit to like Will Smith, like pre-slap, right? Like in the late 90s, like I don't know if the listeners know this, when Will Smith went on that string of hits, I mean, he did it very simple, right? Back. He literally just looked at, I think he started looking in the 1995, 96. He's like, let me just see what the 10 best earning box office flicks were. And he's like, 8 of the 10 have an alien, special effects, and like a love interest. And like, he's like, it wasn't hard, right? So that's why he made Independence Day, and that's why he made Men in Black. And then the last 20 years, every number one flick is basically a sequel, comic book hero movie, or franchise, right? So there's like in a lot of ways, it's kind of like what Jack talked about. It's like the uniqueness maybe isn't like the box office
give
goal.
Give the people
right?
what they want, man.
For people who are only listening, Jack just made a funny face. You should see that.
No one wants to be challenged. They want to be entertained.
But could I just say, Trunk, one thing before you say that?
Yeah.
Like, I think what Jack said needs to be reiterated. Like, the question of like what they're optimizing for, and I'm not talking about this company in particular, but in general, like if you're someone making films and your number one objective is just to make the most money, there's nothing wrong with that. But for a lot of people in creative fields, that's not the main reason you're there. Like that's a big part of it, but you're also trying to find like art in your own way, like, you know, like something that you love so much that is really, and a lot of the time just almost like elitist, and you're like, oh well, most of the population doesn't even get this part because we get it in a different way, and like that part is kind of annoying in its own way too. But I'd just say like that is a big part of this stuff. That's why I think there's always going to be room for artists and creative people, because they are the ones who spark these ideas that become the new things that can be programmed. But yeah, who knows? I could be completely off on the AI part.
Well,
but
I'll actually tell you the moment I knew that there's no chance my film was ever getting made was Steven Spielberg made the movie Lincoln with Daniel Day-Lewis. When he went to the studio with that idea, he's like, I'm Steven Spielberg. I want to make a movie about Abraham Lincoln, and it's going to star Daniel Day-Lewis. The studio said, we don't think we can do that.
That's wild.
And I'm like, all right.
They said no to that?
Well, a few of the studios says we don't think this is commercially viable, and we're talking literally one of the three greatest directors, the greatest actor, Abraham Lincoln. I'm like, if that Venn diagram can't get made, it ended up getting made, but I'm like, I don't know if I can pull it off. But the last thing I was going to say was the most systematic way that this is done. I mentioned in an article, so you probably read it, Bilal, was I don't know if you guys heard of the Blacklist. But basically, started in 2005 by Franklin Leonard. He was a producer at Leo's production studio before he left to do this project. But basically, this was how he systemized the process. There's no AI involved. He just goes to all the film developer producers in the industry, asks them a survey. He's like, tell me a script you read that you liked that hasn't been made yet. And basically, they compile this list, and the script that gets the most like mentions like goes to the top. So since 2005, they've included more than 1,000 screenplays on the Blacklist. 440 have been produced, and 4 of the last 10 Best Pictures were on that list. So I'm like, you can systemize this process, and I think that's an example of doing it. But that's a human element, right? You got the humans reading these scripts all day and like kind of giving their input on the quality of it. So yeah, it was interesting. The entire experience was interesting.
That's sick. All right. Any other thoughts, Jack and Trung, before we move on to my favorite topic, football?
No, the AI thing, we'll have to come back to all the Dolly stuff. And
yeah, I'd love to get someone who's like has used it and like knows what they're talking about.
I see it everywhere all the time, and obviously NFT world is inundated with the debate about art that's made by hand versus by AI, etc. So it's a long and deep discussion. Maybe it's a good guest subject, but a lot of the same themes come up where it's a tool, you can use it, but ultimately, you know, there's somebody pulling the strings and working the technology that has to have an original idea to make it compelling. So we'll come back to it.
Yeah. Trung, anything else?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I would love to bring a guest on that front. So listeners, if you have somebody that's deep in there, I think Jack would have a great or chat on that front. I just want to quickly talk about the Van Gogh painting because I think it's a perfect example. And so I'm just going to show something to the viewers here. I know we got a couple of viewers. I'll tell the listeners. So for the listeners, I have 2 of Van Gogh's most famous paintings. The Starry Night is on the right, and the left side is the Cafe in Paris. And this kind of touches on what Jack was saying about art and the human element. So do you guys notice here in the Cafe in Paris, the night sky? It looks like a pretty normal night sky, right? It looks very representative of what the night sky looks like. And then the Starry Night, which is actually the 3rd most visited painting in the world. Bilal, have you been to Cita MoMA a bunch?
Yeah. Wait, this is in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So the Starry Night
Classic.
Doesn't really look like a real sky at all, right? There's swirls, there's these big stars, it doesn't look natural. but it's his most famous painting. And Neil deGrasse Tyson had this to say about why he thinks it's the most famous painting. He says, the reason he likes A Starry Night is because it doesn't look like reality. It's not what he saw, it's what he felt. And the entire point of good art is to represent what you feel, right? And why I brought this up is because the reason this painting even happened, or one of the influences behind it, was the commercial camera technology came out in around 1839. And that's when you had the Impressionist art movement, like Claude Monet. That's when people stopped drawing to look like reality. Because if you wanted somebody to draw your portrait or have a portrait of yourself, you'd have to pay a painter, right? And you'd want to look pretty accurate. But as soon as camera photography started commercializing, artists were freed from having to do like really, quote unquote, real art. They were allowed to start using their emotions, right? Because they couldn't compete with the camera technology. Camera is going to capture something more real. And the reason I bring all this up is I feel there's a parallel here with Dolly, in that Dolly can create things, but ultimately the expressiveness of a human, that's going to be the difference. That's why Van Gogh, he's got over 2,000 pieces, but the one that has stood the test of time is A Starry Night. It's not his realistic looking pieces. It's the one where he's interpreted it through like his emotions. I think that might be too deep for NIA, but I kind of blew my mind.
Never too deep, Tron.
That's it, mate. Now, that's the range. We got Vitalik packing heat and the depth of Van Gogh here. So, all right, that was great. With that, we'll move on to our next topic, which is all about Ryan Reynolds buying the football club. Is it Wrexham FC? What are they called, Jack?
Wrexham AFC, I think, is the technical...
Oh, okay. Are they like a lower league club? I haven't watched this documentary yet. It looks... it's on my list.
League. They're in a national league, which I think is below League 2 in the UK. So it's
one of those on Championship Manager, where if anyone played Championship Manager growing up, which is... Trung, I don't know if you know what this is. You're like a football manager.
I play Championship Manager. It's amazing.
Yeah? And I almost, I played probably 12 hours a day for many of my teen years, and like all night until early morning. And you would get like the lower league club and go all the way and win the Champions League. This is he's living that dream right now. So yeah, Jack, what has been your takeaway from it so far? Is it worth watching?
So I've only seen, I think there's only 2 episodes up. Right now, it's on Hulu, I think, and FX made it. But the reason I wanted to talk about it was a lot of overlap with the NIA themes, like stuff that we always go back and forth talking about. I tried to look into the deal. I don't know if this is actually the figures, but somewhere it was written that they paid $2 million for the club. So it's Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, who is one of the main characters on It's Always Sunny. And I don't know what the deal is between them, but they're partners in this thing. And basically the TV show starts before the deal. They talk to the board. They try and convince them why they're interested. I think a few people over the past few years have like acquired it, dropped it, like ownership's been in shambles. It's like a working class town in North Wales in the UK. Has a like really passionate following, as a lot of like small clubs do in the UK and Europe. And the reason it's fascinating to me was just the profile of the people acquiring it can actually change the outcome. So they pay $2 million, but there's a lot of people that have $2 million that want to buy football clubs, but some anonymous LLC from the States somewhere buying this club does not give Wrexham the same lift that Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney does, right? Because their profile is just insane. And even the little details in there where like they were reading the kit sponsor ad out, like, this is like a trailer company in North Wales that's selling like agricultural equipment.
Oh, and Ryan Reynolds was reading the ad copy.
That's so good.
Yeah. What an absolute G move.
That is amazing.
So it's like this massive arbitrage thing. Like obviously, like this is where the tension is. Like they're obviously buying it as a business. Like they wanna increase the value of the club. They want to win. They want, like, there's probably some ego component to it. Owning football teams is fun and all that kind of stuff. But there's also, like, they've invested money in it and they're very clear about that, with the intention of, like, turning it into a more viable business. And there's some, like, massive tension there, because they're also, like, going in and have to clear out certain parts of the organization that are not contributing to those goals. They're not football managers, they don't have experience in that world either, but because of their profiles, they've attracted, like, a bunch of hyper qualified people to the club, which, in the same way, again, an anonymous $2 million from elsewhere would not be able to do that, or it would be much more difficult. So they got, like, I think the CEO of the ex-CEO of one of the British football leagues is now, like, temporary manager of the club, because now he can be on a Hulu documentary, chat to Ryan Reynolds every couple of weeks. Like, I think what's fascinating about it to me is, like, this is like the very, very top end of the attention economy, right? Or the influencer economy. Another thing we should talk about, Bilal, is the Prime, Logan Paul, KSI, Arsenal deal. There's just all this stuff happening right now where, like, all these internet characters, and Ryan Reynolds
internet characters
and his mate aren't in that category, right? But
no, like, I mean, like, he has, to your point, I think the thing we have to say about Ryan Reynolds, has anyone channeled the energy of the internet as like, he's, first of all, he's A-level celeb, right? Because of Deadpool.
Course, yeah.
But he's turned that, like you said, this is like the peak of this kind of influencer stuff. He flipped Aviation Gin for 600 mil, right? He owned Mint. He bought into, I don't know what I think he bought a fifth of Mint Mobile, like a US mobile carrier.
Just
and the exact same playbook, doing the ads for that, sucking all the energy. He has a maximum result is the name of his marketing firm. Do you guys remember when Peloton had that ad of the lady that got the gift? But then,
sorry, bro.
But then 2 days later,
yeah,
2 days later, she was in another ad. She was in an Aviation Gin ad. It's because Ryan Reynolds moves at the speed of the internet, but can also put money and his, like, 100 million followers behind it. So he is the master, right? It's like everything you said. And before the call, Jack said that he thinks Wrexham just has this feeling of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Is all the energy of Ryan Reynolds just sucking the attention. I mean, people have done case studies of Ryan Reynolds, but his understanding of how to wield attention is incredible.
Yes, it's
from Vancouver,
like, they
too.
just go. It's the same idea as, like, direct to X. It's just, like, cutting out so much stuff. Like, where a lot of people at his level would still deal with agent, like, company X on this side of the deal, company Y on that side of the deal, where it's like, we're negotiating a contract to do an ad, to do this ad read. Here's my terms. Here's this. Here's that. Versus, like, I'll just buy the thing, then I'll talk about it, and the value of the thing will go up.
No, it's amazing. It's all the stuff we talk about. And by the way, while you were pulling that up, I have about 17 tabs open. I was trying to figure out the value comparables. So the reported fee he paid was £2 million, which is close to dollars nowadays anyway. Pounds. But yeah, it's $2 and a bit, which, you know, in his world is nothing, right? Like, he probably has that easily himself, let alone, you know, accessible liquid, let alone, like, being able to bring other people in. Even if it was paid in cash, him and his boy put $1 million each, right? That's nothing for them.
$1 million.
Yeah, exactly. So you got that, and then now if you get promoted from that division, you would get promoted to EFL League 2, League 1 after that, and then the Championship, which is one level below the Premier League. So you're like 3-4 levels below the Premier League. But I was like, for $2 million, I thought it could be like 15 levels low, like amateur league or something, and it's not. So it's actually quite doable for them to really increase the value. So if they bought it for $2 million, the average, I mean, I'm looking at other
what's the average Premier League club and what's the average Championship?
Premier League clubs are, like, in the billions, right? Like, especially the big ones. I don't know about the smaller ones who've just been, you know,
upgraded,
who've just been promoted to the division. But in the Championship, which is only 2-3 like levels above them, there's clubs being bought. There was one for like 100 million. There was another one for 50. It looks like.
Oh, so like, again, it's a very asymmetric bet.
Exactly. And considering that they're basically buying a distressed asset, like in private equity terms, and like putting more attention, pumping it, getting a new leadership team, investing. Now, it would be interesting to know, given I don't know enough about the financial fair play rules at that level, like how much they can actually do in that amount of time. Because if you look at the Premier League level, you've got Newcastle as the recent acquisition we've talked a little bit about on the pod before, by the Saudis, and they have unlimited money, right? Like they're richer than the next 10 clubs combined or something. And then the guys who did it before is Man City and Chelsea way before that. So the difference is now financial fair play is showing, it's like restricting what they can actually do. So they've invested quite a lot of money, but not like Chelsea in early 2000s and Man City, they did it like 10, 15 years ago or whatever. Now, like there's an argument to be made they were doing some wrong stuff and like giving themselves a sponsorship that counted as revenue and stuff like that. But so maybe Newcastle will find a way too. But yeah, again, at this lower league level, just the fact they're bringing, Hulu along. Like, I mean, I can't imagine they didn't pay much. Like they must have paid a crazy amount of money for something like this, for access to a story like this, right? It might have paid for the whole thing.
It might have
Hulu? Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. It might have paid more than $2 million, I'm sure, because it's him. It's like he's a superstar. So like that might have paid for the whole club itself. So yeah, interesting, really cool idea.
Let me bring up the Crawley Town FC. Do you guys remember the WAGMI United stuff?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So another Trung Phan Bloomberg special was a chat with the founders behind WAGMI United. So WAGMI United. For the listeners, this is Edge of the Internet, just for all you listeners been itching to hear some Web3 stuff. So it's founded by a former ESPN gambling analyst, Preston Johnson, and a derivatives trader, Eben Smith. So they bought Crawley Town FC. This is Bilal. This is EFL 2.
Okay.
So 3 beneath Premier League.
Yeah.
So the guesstimated price is 20 mil. Some of the investing team, which is 30 plus people, Gary V's on the investing team. So is a Philadelphia 76ers president of operation, Daryl Morey. So they're doing a similar playbook to how Jack described. They're sucking the attention in, right? With like, here's a quote unquote distressed asset. That Crawley Town FC. I don't know anything about Crawley Town. What do you guys know about Crawley Town?
Crawley is like a small little, if I'm remembering correctly, it's like, is it south of London or something like that? But it's like within distance to London, but it's kind of a little bit further out. It's a small town, yeah.
So this club is 126 years old. I know how much Jack loves history. And so WAGMI United is a group. They own, no individual owns more than 10%. So they're trying to do the whole web. So I'll pitch you the Web3 playbook that they're trying to do, right? They sold $5 million worth of NFTs. So as an example, that's more revenue than Crawley Town FC did in the last 3 years combined. So they've already brought more money in, right? And they compare that to, I mean, Bilal knows this. Remember the Liverpool NFT drop? So Liverpool thought they'd make like 11 million on NFTs. I think they made less than $1 million. It's just like, the idea is that Crawley Town's saying, listen, we're bringing Web3 people to football, but like, if you're a football fan, do you actually care about NFTs?
You don't. And in fact, if anything, my understanding of it is people are very anti. Like, because they had Socios, I think it was, and like clubs doing like Arsenal coin, Chelsea coin, and like even just listening, I listen to like so much football stuff, and like
did you get Arsenal coin?
No, I didn't get it either because I was like, there's not much, I'm not really getting anything.
What was it offering? What was it?
It was offering like you can vote for like what songs on before the game or like something stupid, like, and it wasn't even, I don't think it was even that much. Like it was just weird stuff like that.
So that's what the Crawley guys are saying. They're like, listen, all these other like Web3 efforts, like it's a wrong approach. Is like people are already skeptical of Web3. You can't just shove it down their throat. Yeah. But they bought this team. They're like, we want people that care about Web3 to be involved. And like, this is interesting. So I love Bilal's thoughts on
this. It's more like a community coming together, whether that was in this case, WAGMI people, crypto people, or if it was like, people creating a random city in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like it's the same idea, but just like there's a shared community essentially. So Jack, you were going to say something as well.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think like why these two projects that we're talking about have more compelling value propositions because there's more upside. There's more above them. Like what's Arsenal going to do? Like, oh, maybe they'll like go from like being in the top
Go
5
back
for the
to
Premier
the top,
League.
baby.
Oh, what do you mean to be invested? Like, why
There's
would
way
like
more
the
room
asset,
to run.
Yeah,
There's way more room to run.
It's a
in that.
story.
Like,
It's a story.
you feel like you're getting into the ground floor versus like Arsenal doesn't need your money. Liverpool doesn't need your money. Like LeBron James is an investor in Liverpool. You know what I mean? Like it's not a compelling story, even if Liverpool is something you love and the store, like the club's heritage is something you're invested in. Like you being financially tied to that, it's more like buying like an ETF or something. You know, it's like maybe it'll go up in value 2% a year for the next 10 years, but it's already at the top of the game. It's a safe bet versus, I'll chuck a couple $100 at this experiment that is going to really benefit a community and a club and a stadium and a team that doesn't have these resources. And then that attention can then snowball into all these other effects that, like, again, it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. And they have built in, like, not even fandom, it's like supercharged, right? People's identities are wrapped up in this in a way that like a business, a traditional business is not, is very, very hard to get that level of attachment and relationship with people, unless your business is, I mean, even like incredibly successful businesses, like people hate them, you know, like Amazon.
People hate
like,
Amazon.
Amazon's my identity. Right? On Saturday, I go out and like spend my time like cheering Amazon vans as they go past. You don't do that. But like there's something really interesting about a business that isn't particularly viable, that has like a connection with its customers. I'm saying that in inverted commas, fans of a club. I think that's always kind of been at odds in the world of sports, right? There's you have a fiduciary duty, and this thing has to be economically viable to put the games on every week. It's not a charity, but at the same time, it's not the same relationship you'd have like as like a company that produces goods and sells it to customers. It's very different.
No, it's like the most, like, I hate to use this word that I remember learning at school, but like inelastic demand in economics, right? Like price, you know, there's price elasticity. It's like literally, everything that Arsenal puts out, I'm buying. And I'm
doesn't
like,
matter what the price is.
Like right now, the prices for tickets for Arsenal specifically, you can't get a ticket. Like it hasn't been like this for years because the atmosphere and they're doing really well. And it's just, people are paying like so much more. Like last year I went and I could get a ticket so easily.
How much?
And
how much last year?
I would pay like the normal kind of price that it was, you know, sold for, which is like 60 or 80 pounds or something like that, which is actually high for the UK, right?
Yeah.
Because in London or whatever. But, you know, compared to like buying on a secondary market, because they don't really allow you to do secondary market stuff. In the past, I got bumped and paid like 400 or something.
What?
And like,
how many games have you been to? Arsenal games in your life?
I'm not sure. I've lost count, but probably
okay.
like
Real?
No, I mean, I was never a season ticket holder growing up. Unfortunately, it was too expensive. But and then by the time I actually made money, I kind of left. So it was always like when I would like go back and stuff. So every time I go back, I have to book the Arsenal ticket before I book the flight because I have to see what's available, because that's part of the
priorities.
You got to get a priorities right. Yeah.
Good man.
But I was going to bring one more example, by the way. John Green, who's a YouTuber and also a novelist who wrote A Fault in the Stars.
Brother, right?
Hank Green's brother.
Yeah.
Amazing YouTuber guy as well. And he made, you know, that book that became a film.
Great movie.
He bought AFC Wimbledon, or he at least like saved them from getting relegated, or something happened a few years ago.
He also did the Ryan Reynolds move?
This was 8 years ago. Yeah. I don't know if he bought it outright. I'm like skimming it. I remember when it happened, it was kind of a cool story. But he's actually an AFC Wimbledon fan. Like he wasn't just like he was a fan from growing up randomly. And
That's
AFC
legendary.
Wimbledon is some tiny team as well. So it was kind of a fun story. But yeah,
sick, man. Then,
I think football DAO is definitely something that could happen, man. I mean, 2 million is not that crazy.
They brought the conversation up. None of these leagues would probably allow the DAO, right? There's ownership rules about how many people can be involved.
Yeah, I definitely don't want people in a Discord telling me who to pick the team. So.
Well, here, this is what I was going to tell Bilal. So WAGMI United, the investing group that bought Crawley Town, this is what they allowed to happen with NFT holders. I'd love your thoughts on this. They're allowed to vote on the position to spend the basically the free agency
transfer budget. Yeah,
so
that's
they put up for a vote. They said you can pick a goalkeeper, defender, midfielder, attacker. Just pick one of those positions. We'll end up still picking the player. The vote was allocated 50% to season ticket holders. There's 1,000 of them. 50% to NFT holders. There are, I think, about 10,000. Grant, and listen, the big criticism, I read through some of the Twitter comments. Some of the local fans are not super happy, right? Because a lot of these NFTs holders hadn't even heard of, don't even know what football is. So how do you feel about that?
Here's the way they could have done it differently is you could have distributed that ownership back to the fans that were already fans, right? Not just invite speculators to take control of the club.
Yeah.
Like all these people that have been buying tickets for £30 a week for the last 20 years are now beholden to like a bunch of knobheads on Twitter and Discord.
Hold on, to be fair, they're saying 50-50, right? They're saying season ticket holders have 50%. So I don't know if that's enough.
Fair enough. So they did do that. So they did do that to some extent, but like that, I mean, that's a great gesture. So maybe I should take back my previous
He takes away the knobhead.
Well, actually, just to be fully fair, because I don't want us to get in trouble for this one, but Jack, they also lowered the local ticket prices with some of that money. So
that's sick.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah. No,
they're
that's
doing
cool.
legit moves.
Like, so I don't know why they're getting the feedback that, people externally are swaying the vote, because they could they could have given them 51% maybe.
Yeah. Well, so I think it's just annoyance that people. Bilal, if there were 50% of like NFT holders telling Arsenal what to do,
I think it should. So my opinion is that giving ownership is cool if people want it. Like the argument is like some of these clubs, like bigger clubs, have been public companies at different times, so you could technically become a shareholder. I know like Man United for a long time had that. I don't know.
Barcelona too, right? Is like
Barcelona maybe. I don't know the full details now because they're all in terrible financial. Barcelona's financial situation is absolutely insane. They haven't like paid one of their players like 10 million euros or something.
Mario just wrote something about that, didn't he?
Yeah,
he wrote the Barcelona thing. Yeah, the journalist guy, for people who don't know Mario. But yeah, my thing is similar to what we've talked about on this pod, like throughout the time we've done it. Is my opinion is like something like a football club, like the random person should not be deciding what happens. Someone who's qualified and knows 1,000 times more than me should. It's fine if you want to get people's vote and like get a sense of sentiment, or say, oh, this is what the fans think about, like, oh, they really are not enjoying the stadium experience, they want us to improve that. Like, give them a chance to share their opinion. That is really important. I'm just saying, like, let's say I ran
vote
a
for
football
the food
club,
trucks or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like they can tell us. Like this is, I remember Kat Cole, this lady said to me, you have a voice but not a vote. That like stuck with me forever, because we were talking about like managing people and how when I first managed people, I was like struggling to make sure everyone felt included, but also saying like, well, I'm the person who's supposed to make this decision, and that is just stuck with me. It's like a summary, like you get a voice but not a vote. And I think for something like this is like football fans, tell us what you care about. Like we already can't know what you care about. You care about winning and a great fan experience, and like drop some fire kits once in a while. Yeah, so I can like look fresh.
Kits is a good one. The kits is a a good shout too.
Yeah,
like
let people.
That's cool.
Yeah, if you could get like people involved with some of that, that's kind of if anything, you actually marketing,
research,
you're doing
product,
validating. Exactly, that's what I was thinking. So those things make sense. But if you're saying, tell us which position we should be buying for, like no, like stupid, the manager and the coaching staff and nowadays a technical director should know. Yeah, and
it's always like even the biggest fans of the club, like everybody thinks they have the answer, right? Like
armchair
we need to be doing this, we need to take this person off at half time. So they ain't got a clue.
You haven't got a clue.
And every single one of them saying something different, so you just end up nowhere. Like somebody has to be accountable all in the Discord decisions too.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
I don't want to have to bring up Michael Siller every episode, but these fans know enough to hurt themselves.
Exactly. There you go.
Boys, I actually found Go on, Strong. I'm
saying this is a perfect example of this. This is a perfect example. You know enough to hurt yourself. Yes. Oh damn! Look at them values, man. So
Business
Jack pulled up
soccer, here we go.
The team values for English football clubs, or no, European
top
football
20. No, just top 20 football clubs in the world, I think.
Looks like a real legit. So I was Forbes. Sorry, originally I thought it was some random site because it looked so plain.
Well, I don't know how. I
think this is probably accurate.
Rattle off some prices.
Close.
Let's talk about these prices. I mean, the values. Hit them.
So Real
Jack.
Madrid, 5.1 billion value, 761 million revenue, 90 mil operating income. Not bad, is it?
Yeah.
Barcelona's losing $17 million there.
But it's worth $5 billion.
Incredible, man. Incredible with that brand to be in that position.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's crazy.
Man United, nice
PSG.
margins there.
Look at PSG. Losing $100 million a year.
Yeah,
oh
it's insane. Because they're just bankrolled,
At the bottom of this list, there's a few lower tier Premiership teams. Aston Villa, Leeds. Hey, shout out Chef. You're probably listening.
West Ham fan.
900 mil, bringing in 42. But yeah, so Bilal, you're right. Just shy of a billion mark is.
But isn't it crazy? Like the top 20. I don't know what year this is from. This is probably last year's data. Mm-hmm. But of the top 20, look how many of them are English Premier League clubs, which is crazy because if you think
a good amount.
More than half. It looks
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You're right, Bilal.
And that I bet this year it's even more because basically the state of football right now is all the European leagues are really struggling. Everyone was struggling from COVID because people weren't going to stadiums. They're not buying tickets, beer, and food, shitty pizza in the stadiums, right? And then obviously there was a pause as well for the thing. So a lot of them just got hit. And now the only thing that's keeping afloat the Premier League is the TV rights are just crazy. And
America's chucking money at it. Yeah.
America's chucking money, even in Asia, so everywhere. It's incredible what's happening, and it's the most competitive it's ever been. Is in my opinion anyway. I can't think of a time.
Wasn't there NBC or something? I think it was $1 billion deal for rights. Probably. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, it's huge. And now you'll see teams like West Ham, Aston Villa, Leeds. West Ham just bought a player for £60 million as a striker that some of the other big clubs are trying to buy. That never happened before.
That's
and
crazy.
So AC Milan, one of the biggest clubs in the world, historic clubs, probably isn't competing in that level. So it's just really interesting. The Premier League, how crazy
attention rules, isn't it? That's exactly
example. The point of your whole segment here. Exactly. All right, boys. Anything else here apart from saying we need to go and buy a football club because that would be, 2 million makes me feel like we can make it happen. We throw in a couple ETH.
Yeah. We could probably raise that from the Telegram group, boys.
Yeah, I feel like there's a few. We can raise
that from a banana NFT of our boy Vitalik.
Can you banana NFT? Jack, get to working, mate.
I'll get on it after this, boys. Yeah.
All right, but great discussion. Trung, anything else before we move on to the last bit? European energy crisis.
Hit this last one.
Let us know what you think of this segment because I know I got a little hype there with the football chat because secretly I just want to have a football podcast as well. So if it's gone.
My other thing was going to be they just built the biggest soccer-only stadium in Nashville, just down the road from me. I've been going to a few games.
Watch your mouth saying soccer, though, Jack.
In the USA. In the USA.
What's the MLS team in Tennessee?
In Nashville, it's Nashville
FC.
Yeah.
You and Theo Von just sitting there sipping on
put soccer club, don't they?
Smoothies.
Yeah. But mate, they did an amazing job in that stadium, and the quality's going up. MLS is becoming watchable.
Well, the last thing I'll say on that is the other example to look at is Miami FC or whatever, and Beckham is really involved with that, and he's done a great job of getting. Obviously, he came and played at LA Galaxy, and now it is actually a really interesting thing. There's probably more upside in MLS than there is in some of those leagues, like you said.
Oh man, in here, people have gone nuts for this. Is the first season that they're here, and it's almost every other person you walk past on the street's got the hat, the shirt, it's there's captured this demand that already existed. It's very bizarre.
And American fans applied to football or soccer is so. I was watching the Arsenal game in a bar this weekend, And man, like the way they're going hard is so funny. It's amazing.
Yo, these Nashville FC jerseys are pretty tight, man.
Yeah.
Yellow?
Yeah.
How the hell does Nashville have a hockey team? That's my question. The Predators?
Predators, mate. Smashville.
Do people? Is it huge?
That's huge. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
good lord.
Big
man.
sports town like Titans. They love the.
Oh
they
yeah.
love the NFL
Fair enough.
too. Mate, big sports town.
We're gonna move on. The last thing I'm gonna say, talking about kits, I have to give the Arsenal boys a shout. Look at this drippy away kit, man. Jeez, look at that. That is Adidas drip. That is like, you can see Giggs wearing that. You can see like I mean the rapper, not the footballer, obviously. But anyway,
Giggsy? People love Giggsy.
Giggsy, yeah. Apart from his wife. All right. So anyway, sorry, that was a bad one. We might have to beat that one out.
That out. Yeah, beat that one out.
Sorry about that. All right, let's move on to the last section. Europe. Talking about terrible things in Europe. Here is what is going on in the European energy crisis. Trung.
All right, this is like, look, I actually had no idea what was really going on. I've just been seeing the memes. Like I kind of caught it, so I did some research for you guys. But here's a meme that just absolutely rattled me. From Liquidity.
Jesus Christ.
For the listeners, it's a photo of a guy looking quite submissive to his partner, and it says German boyfriends when their girlfriends are from Russia and can provide electricity this winter. That
incredible.
We might have to get that bleeped out because that is so savage.
No, that's perfect.
What's
it just
happening?
Captures what's going on.
Yeah, I'm just gonna hit the TLDR on the energy crisis because I actually have to boogie in a couple minutes myself.
Well, actually, Trump, can I just say the 10-second thing? Obviously, we're laughing at meme. I will say it's absolutely terrible what's about to happen to
the energy crisis is awful. Yeah.
Literally, old people in the UK and Germany, like a lot of them are not going to have heat, and it's terrible. So, obviously, I'm not laughing at that part. But the meme is jokes, so we can have
we're
both
not laughing
here.
about that at all because listen, you know, with Europe constantly has. I mean, you guys were telling me about this. I didn't realize. So you're saying Europe AC is just not a thing?
Mostly not. No.
Yeah. And it's just like the summers have been getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And
this is the first summer I've ever heard people saying I'm buying an AC. They ran out in the UK because it was really, it was like 35, 36 degrees Celsius.
And
or even
obviously
higher.
The reason is because temperature-wise, for decades you didn't need AC, right?
It didn't get that hot, yeah.
Okay, so the energy crisis, this is obviously a bit more serious. The numbers you guys were just sending me, these charts, we just saw electricity prices are up 1,400% against the average for the last decade. This is in Germany. The price of natural gas is up 10 times since last year. So super quick, 3 reasons of why it's happening. Russia's a big part of it, but it's not the only reason. So we've briefly mentioned about Gazprom, which is Russia's natural gas giant. It feeds energy to Europe. And that relationship has obviously become very complex and complicated since the Ukrainian invasion. And what's basically happened is that every year Gazprom goes offline for maintenance, but this year they've been using that bit more as like a political tool to kind of fight back against the sanctions. So Russia is withholding 20% of gas versus what it did previously from last year. And then the heat wave that you mentioned, the heat wave is actually doing something crazy with the water. So the water levels are lowering in the rivers in Europe. And you guys actually sent me that information too. And what that does though is 2 parts. If you're not getting gas from Russia, you need to replace it. You either have to get imports of natural gas from around the world, or you have to get coal. And you need those 2 because Europe has been shutting down its nuclear plants, right? So Germany shuttered a bunch of its nuclear plants after Fukushima about a decade ago, the accident in Japan. And lower water levels mean the river has more traffic and you're unable to move the coal to the right cities. China and India, in parallel, are buying up all the coal. They're creating the coal and kind of keeping it for themselves. And waters also need to run power plants, nuclear power plants, because the water cools the reactors. So the few reactors that are there, they're not being cooled properly. And then the last part is they haven't built natural gas terminals to replace energy in Europe. So this is like a multi-year situation. This might be too serious, boys. We should probably cut it. No,
I will say, this is terrible, but I will say we were sharing this. Let me just pull up. This was our boy Kobe was sharing this, and we talked about this a little bit in the in the group chat. I mean, this is the sort of stuff that's coming out now, right? Like you're getting these write-ups. So what is this? Is it Bloomberg money or what? What do you reckon, Trump?
I think it's the Telegraph.
Is it Telegraph? But there's stuff like this because, I mean, it's really terrible. There's like a cost of living crisis in the UK and in many places. But like, this is not cutting it, man. How to save £28 a week from October is essentially saying go and work and shower in the office. Like that is, we're in a terrible place if that is the sort of stuff that is being shared, man. It's terrible. Trung, anything else on that, mate? Because you kind of explained what's happening, but is there any like hope for this? Is there how is this going to be reversed?
They're going to have to build the terminals. They're going to have to turn on the nuclear power plants. I'll leave it with this. It's like here's a tweet that Elon did on about 5 days ago. I think you guys might have seen this, but he tweeted, "Countries should be increasing nuclear power generation. It is insane from a national security standpoint and bad for the environment to shut them down." Like the environmentalists just completely took over Germany. They were at the whim of the Russians, and this is kind of a consequence of that. They shut down the nuclear reactors, never built liquid natural gas terminals to receive natural gas. But yeah, dude, this is not even like I can't even pretend to really know this. I do a lot of pretending, but this one is far enough out of my realm. I don't even want to pretend. But that's they're gonna have to build. They're gonna have to turn on nuclear reactors.
Do you think it's just a political thing that like people have this instinctive feeling when you say nuclear, they think of like
took over? Yeah, it's just like if you look at the actual statistics of coal versus nuclear, what has caused more death? It's not even remotely close, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you said, it's the branding of nuclear is very poor.
We need Ryan Reynolds to get involved.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds could fix it. Well, actually, so like.
Sorry, that was a great way to bring some light to this terrible situation.
Yeah, that got a little bit serious, but I got nothing more to add to that. So.
That's why I watch football, mate. I
was gonna do the NIA hook into this. We got to give our boy Michael Saylor a shout out on this.
The Bitcoin-powered nuclear plant.
No, the sugar-powered Tesla. There's a nugget of truth in that, where like the generation of energy and technology, like assaulting this problem head on, is the only way out, right?
Yep.
Plus, the true cost of energy, like energy is security. Like this is the thing that I think will strengthen some of the Bitcoin narrative too, where it's like when shit hits the fan, the thing that matters is access to energy, right? Everything is derived from energy. Yeah. Everything.
Yeah.
So like that idea that you can get away with, man, it just seems insane. Like some of the relationships that have been negotiated and some of the dependencies that are in place, like you feel a little bit cheated by the people who you pay to have your survival
totally
like in their hands, and it's just not good. It's just not going to have good repercussions for the relationship between people and governments. And it's also like the flip side of it. I hope that what comes out of this is like technology is the answer to this problem, right? It's like you have to attack this from the perspective of solving the actual problem as opposed to inventing a talking point that makes people feel nice inside.
The politics, right? Yeah. Let's just call a spade, right? Like Greta Thunberg, like what an idiot. She's an idiot. It's like she's just like somebody's trying to make people feel and like do this outrage. But like, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. She does not understand geopolitics, energy policy, and people just bought it hook, line, and sinker.
I would say the more the people who are making decisions and taking her point of view. But they use her as
like this, like she was used, right? That's the reality. She she's a kid. Doesn't understand that she was being used. To push these political agendas.
But that's what it is ultimately, right? Like, because Jack, to not challenge, but to build on your point, like you said, technology is the answer, and I agree. But a lot of it, like a lot of the technology is kind of there, it seems like. But the real problem is like the will and the prioritization of making it a thing, which is partly, one is like, instead of saying we're gonna this is topical, so it's coming to my head, but we're going to put 300 billion or whatever it was to this student relief. I don't even know if that was the right number, but yeah, to this, we're going to actually, inflate our economy for other reasons, like we're going to do it because this is the most important thing. My opinion is, like, I obviously think this is a massive, massive problem, if not the biggest problem that we're all facing. But the truth is, until it's hitting you in the face, you don't change your behavior. And that's both at individual level and a governmental level. And the incentives for both individuals and government are pretty short term. So when there's a global pandemic and you're worried about dying, or there's a monkeypox thing going around where you don't want to look crazy, right? With monkeypox, you get your act together. You don't do certain things, right? And we all were able to do that straight away. / the governments were able to get everyone involved and say, we're going to have to shut everything down, etc., etc. That was for something that obviously was a problem, obviously, but this is a systemic problem that could affect billions of people, literally, or will affect billions of people. Maybe it already is. So, but just thinking of that in the future is not enough. So until it starts slapping people in the face, unfortunately, that's the only time people actually start taking action. And that's like maybe human behavior, I don't know. So yeah, I don't know what the solution is. But every person I speak to who knows a million times more than I do on this, because I know almost nothing. Like, I did a couple interviews on Create Lab for it, and I had dinner recently with a McKinsey guy whose job is renewable energy, and he's got like a PhD or something in it. And I was asking about nuclear because I said, I've heard like basically on the All In Pod or somewhere else talk about it. And when I did a podcast on it, they were saying nuclear. And I was like, what? I didn't even think of nuclear for ages. And he was like, yeah, the minimum is they should just be using what they've already got. If you're not creating new ones, that's already a win. Like, just to use the stuff that we've already got from the past.
Don't shut down the ones that you already got,
just don't
right?
shut down,
and
yeah.
Shut them down and import coal.
Yeah, exactly.
Guys, I got to boogie quickly. I'm getting laser-eyed.
No, it's all good. Anyway, yeah, I think we were at the end of this anyway. Trung's got to go pick up his kid and do his daddy duty. So, good chat today, boys. Thanks for being there, everyone, for listening, your support, sharing this with your friends in the group chat. That's how we keep growing this thing, sharing on Twitter, cutting the clips, all this great stuff. We really appreciate the love and support. And if you're new here, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and all the podcast apps. And we will see you next week on the next one. Cheers.
Peace.
Peace out.